and I'm working on the WinSE Hotfix QA project. So, can I just start now? Is everybody ready? Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So, let me introduce what is the WinSE Hotfix QA in short. So what we do is we test basic functionalities of Hotfix packages or GDR packages or privates for those hotfixes before those privates are handed to customers, or as soon as those packages are handed over to customers. So our bottom line is we just test basic functionalities of the components or binaries packages for those Hotfix packages. And do you know what is Hotfix, by the way? Okay, WinSE has, in a big picture, we have two service models. Like we provide service pack, and also we provide Hotfix packages. And Hotfix is kind of a very small fix for certain companies' small problem. And then service pack is like a big fix. Probably you installed the service pack before. It's a huge package, like with many 100 megabytes or more, like with larger fixes in it. But Hotfix is usually a small fix, usually a fix for one problem. We make a small package and we hand it over to customers' hand, and they deploy the packages to solve their problems. So what we do here is different from Build a BBT. What Build a BBT is, when we create a Hotfix package, we have a separate team called Build a BBT team. They check whether the package was built correctly, whether the package installed is okay or not. So that kind of testing is done through a Build a BBT process. And what we do is kind of functional BBT. We check the functionalities of the Hotfix packages. So let's move to the next slide. So the brief history is we started component functional BBT test since October 2001, and we started testing Hotfix packages and privates for them. We don't test older languages of Hotfix packages. When we build Hotfix packages, they are built in older available languages. But what we test is only English and German and Korean packages only. So we test Hotfix packages, GDR packages, and then privates for Windows 2000 and Windows XP only. GDR, here it says GDR. GDR is a general distribution release. This is a Hotfix package which goes to Windows update site so that it can go to general public. So a lot of people can install those packages. Compared to general distribution release, those individual Hotfixes usually go to one company or only a few companies which has some specific problems. We test Windows 2000 and Windows XP Hotfixes and GDR packages, but we do not test Windows NT 4 Hotfix packages or Windows 2003 Hotfix packages. And we are currently trying to collect some test automations, more test automations for Windows 2000 and Windows XP components, because the tests we run are collected from individual component test owners, and we get those test automation from test owners, and we have some big pool of test automation. So whenever we have some Hotfix packages, we decide which test is right for certain packages, and we run those tests for the Hotfix packages and privates. And another effort we do is we try to automate the general Hotfix test process from end to end. Like when you get the new Hotfix packages, and then we kind of install the Hotfix package automatically and run the test and then update the result kind of stuff. We try to automate the whole stuff now, and it's partially automated, but we due to some limitations on the test harness we are currently using, which is called Test Enterprise, we are migrating the test harness to WTT, which is Windows test technology, which is a new test harness. So we are trying to migrate our test harness to that one. So next slide shows what we do. So I divided them into two categories, what we do and what we don't do. So it makes a lot clearer for everybody to understand what is the WinSE Hotfix QA process. So we start testing on Hotfix packages as soon as those packages got built and they pass the builder BBT, and finally they posted on the release share. When the Hotfix packages are released on the release share, our automated process goes to some database and then goes to the share and make sure the package was never been tested, right? So we add that information into our own database and we keep tracking the testing status. So that's the point when we start testing the Hotfix packages. And then when we test them, we test the basic functionalities of those components for the packages or the binaries are included in the packages. Also, we have a small dedicated team, including me and two other persons running the test. So those packages get tested as soon as they got released. And one of the questions came from previous session was that why we do not test the Hotfix packages before we release them. The reason why was WinSE team has a Hotfix end-to-end time goal, which starts from the we get some requests for Hotfix, and then we actually create private, and then actually finally we create Hotfix packages. We care for that service time, and then this testing can take usually one day or several days or even a week, so that it can hurt that our end-to-end time goal. So we decided to test these Hotfixes afterward they got released. So we test them as soon as possible. So it takes about, on average, it takes about 4 days. So that's about time when customers actually get the Hotfixes and about time to deploy the packages. So if we find the problems during our test process, and then we immediately contact our Hotfix PMs or developers or testers, which owns the testing of that specific component or Hotfix package, so that everybody knows of the problem, and we recall the package right away so that our customers don't need to install the broken packages. So there's a little downside for that one, but we still add lots of values because we usually find the problems before our customers deploy their bad packages. So also, the Hotfix packages for Windows 2000 and Windows XPs are getting tested, and we do not test the Windows NT4 packages again because it's an old platform. And then for Windows 2003 Hotfix packages, we do not test them because as a WinSE team, we do not own testing of the Windows 2000 yet. And the second item here is I already mentioned. So there are some cases that we do have test automation for packages, and sometimes we do not have test automation to test those packages. So in case of that, in case we do not have test automation to test some Hotfix packages privates properly, we send our email to our component test owners to test those packages for us within 4 days, because the 4 days is kind of our time goal to finish our testing. So we ask component test owners to test them, and then or we ask them to give us the test automation so that we can do the work for them. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, we test English, German, and Korean Hotfix packages and privates, or actually just packages, and we just test English version privates only. The reason why is because of our limited resources and timeline, so we cannot test all languages. So we just test only those 3 language versions of Hotfixes. And also we test the Korean version Windows 2000, Windows XP Hotfix packages only if the test automation we have works like 100% automated way. So if the setup part is automated, and then the actual test part is automated, then we run the test for the packages. And we also have 2 other testers. And if the test automation we have are not fully automated, like if some of the tests can be like a halfway automated, like a setup part, 2 machines should be there, and then some weird setup should be done manually, or some special hardware should be attached manually, and we gotta run the test. In that case, those tests are run by our testers manually. Also, we test privates for Windows 2000 only, not the packages. Only if the test automation we have for Windows 2000 works on the Windows 2003 also. And another part for what we do. So component test owners give us their test automation for our functional BBT purposes. So they give us test automation for BBT, and then they are responsible for updating their test and then notifying us. And then we are responsible for running them and maintaining the overall process to run various test automation from different test owners. Also, this is the second part is about the case of test failures. Whenever we have test failures from our test process, we contact the responsible parties, like PMs, developers, test teams, as soon as possible, so that we can take some required actions as soon as possible. Also, we send out our monthly status report to everybody in WinSE, so that everybody can know what we do and what was our status on a monthly basis. So here's what we don't do. We do not test specific bug fix for Hotfix packages or like privates. The bug is usually open for some problems, right? And then the Hotfix package is built to fix that kind of problems. But what we do here is to test general functionalities, overall functionalities of a component or package binaries. So we do not actually repro the issues for the bug, and then we do not actually test the fix itself. We just test the general functionalities. And then we do not test privates if we do not have test automation. In case of Hotfix packages, we send test requests to component test owners, but for privates, it depends on our test owners. So the way we actually test privates is a little bit different from the way we test Hotfix packages, in the sense of how we detect them. For Hotfix packages, we have some automated process that our developers send in some privates, and then our build team build their package, and then later it is released to the release share, and then there's some database in the backend, so we can find out whether the new packages are released or not. So we can start our process as soon as those Hotfix packages are released. But in case of privates, we depends on our email system. So when our developers send out their privates for Hotfix to PSS or PSS team, then it's a product support group, and then they actually CC us in their mail so that we can know about their privates, and then we add that private information into our database and we start testing. So in that sense, it's a little bit different. So for Hotfix packages, we ask test owners to those packages if we don't have test automation from the test owners. But for private, because we do not want to bug our component test owners twice, right? Privates and later Hotfix packages. So if we do not have test automation for privates, we just let go. And then it totally depends on our component test owners, because they also get notified about their privates. So next one. So as I mentioned earlier, we do not test NT4 Hotfix packages, and also we do not test Windows 2003 Hotfix packages until our WinSE team officially owns Windows 2003 Hotfix servicing. So this is a little diagram about our test process. Actually, I can use the mouse here. Okay. So from the start, we scan for new Hotfix packages or private. So we know when the new packages are available out there, and then as soon as we find the new packages, and then we add their information into our database. So we move to the next stage here, and then we check those packages binaries and see if we have test automation or not. So in case we do not have test automation, then we check whether the testing of that specific component or binaries are owned by WinSE. And then if it is owned by WinSE, then we assign testing to component test owner, and they run the test and update the result and go to the end. And then if WinSE do not own testing of that component or binaries, and then we just close the case. We do not pursue any more extra testing. In case that we have test automation, we first decide whether those packages can go through our automated test process. So we basically have two test paths. Like one is auto BBT, another one is manual testing. If one package has any binaries or components that can go through our auto BBT process, it goes to that automated test process. This one selects the test machine automatically and re-images the machine to set up a clean test environment, and install the Hotfix packages or privates, and then select required test automation, and then run the test and update the test result automatically. If the package cannot go through auto BBT process, and our testers for our project runs those tests manually, they set up test machine manually and select the required test, and then run the test and update the result afterward. So this is our test process. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? So please give me any questions, whenever you have some doubts or questions. So, okay, next slide. So benefits from the WinSE Hotfix QA. So why we do it? So thing is, we believe that we can increase our customer satisfaction by having this test process. So previously, WinSE did not run any official testing on the Hotfix packages before and after we ship those Hotfix packages to the customers, or even private. Some component testers run some tests against the privates to see if that private fix actually fixes the problem that customer had or not. But there was no guarantee or like some forced way, that we guaranteed any testing. So after we implemented this process, we test all the packages to see if they actually installed okay and working okay, if the services for the components or binaries started okay after installing the packages and rebooting the machines, kind of stuff. So the typical problems we found is like something like this, like customers do not see much of blue screen after installing their Hotfix packages, or like some services like hanging or something like that. So one example is sometimes customers install private or Hotfix packages, and then they reboot the machine and they cannot even log on, or like a blue screen or something like that, right? So it shouldn't happen. So we try to detect at least that kind of problems, so that basic functionalities of the components they want to update by installing Hotfix packages work okay. Like a general functionality should work fine. So we can, in that sense, we can increase the customer satisfaction. So the rate we find, the test failures we find every month is about, on average, about 5% of overall Hotfix packages we produce. So I believe that's quite a bit of amount. So I believe we are adding some values to the team. And we can improve the basic functionalities and the basic quality of Hotfix features and functionalities by testing the Hotfix packages. And then also we can lower our recall rate, because the recalling means once we release some Hotfix packages and then we found out that the package is broken later, then we have to recall it, right? Just like our automotive companies recall some cars for fixing some cars like that, right? We have to recall our packages and then we have to give them new packages. So by testing the privates especially, we can find some problems beforehand, before customers get their fixes. We can actually guarantee at least minimum qualities of the hotfixes later. So we can actually lower the recall rate of our hotfix servicing. Also, we can improve quality of the future service pack version, because service pack is whole sum of individual small hotfix packages and also the fixes internally found in Microsoft. So by testing individual hotfixes, and we can guarantee minimum quality of individual fixes, those service in the future service pack build can have better quality in general. So that can reduce overall development time or testing time of our service pack versions in the future. So two doors. Yes. Okay, the question is whether we test the hotfixes before customer gets the hotfix packages or after they got the packages, right? We start testing hotfix packages at the same time the packages are released to customers and to us. So we just detect the new hotfix package release when they get available to customers. So we start testing at the same time. Does that answer your question? That's right. So we still find some problems. So our goal is we are trying to test those hotfix packages as soon as possible after they got released. Because once they got released on our release share, and then our customers can get them whenever they can, right? After they get released. And then we hope that customers have some, at least a few days before actually they deploy them on their actual system. So we try to test those hotfix packages at least within 4 days. That's like a worst case scenario, but we usually test hotfix packages within 1 day if every test automation is automated and we have all the test automation. But worst case scenario is like we do not have test automation, and then we send a test request mail to component test owners, and then wow, the test owner is on vacation, and then we gotta wait until the test owners come back, right? Then we gotta wait about a week or 2 weeks, and then it can be kind of bad. So that's one of the reasons we decide to add this test process after the hotfixes are released. Yes. Okay, so the question is, what about the test cases about the problem found during our test process or after release, right? Okay, what's the differences before and test cases? What's the difference in test cases before and after the release? Okay, so actually it depends on our component test owners. So whenever we find test failures and problems from the hotfix packages, we notify component test owners so that they are aware of the problem. So it depends. So it's our component test owners' responsibility to update their test cases. So if the problem is actually new test case, our testers usually add a new test case into their test plan. Or if it is existing test case, and then we usually call it regression, right? The fix was there already before, and then it was gone for a long while, and then it got just resurfaced, right? And then, oh, this fix was solved a long time ago, and it just show up again. Then we call it a regression, and then we make sure that regression gets fixed as soon as possible too. Okay, any other questions? Yes. That's right.
So will you write a new code or you pass it to the test owner?
So the question is, if the hotfix breaks some other components other than actually that component for the hotfix, then do we contact the component test owners?
Will you write a new code and follow it, or will you notify the...
Oh, in that case, whether we find a new bug or just use the existing bug and contact the component test owners. It kind of depends. Like sometimes we use existing bug or reopen the bug and then just follow up, right? So we rebuild the package. Usually that's the case when we find the problem before customers actually deploy their packages, right? Because if customers actually did not deploy the hotfix packages yet, then it means, oh, we can actually rebuild the package and give it to them again. So we can reuse their existing bug, reopen, and then rebuild the package, and then give them a new one. And sometimes we have to find a new bug too. If the problem they see is kind of different from the original problem the original bug opened for. Like they saw problem A, and so they built a package for that problem. Then later, after they installing the problem, they start seeing like a problem B. And then, oh, in that case, we better open a new bug for the new problem. So we either we produce fix for that, and then we either add that into a future sub-spec version, or we build a new hotfix package. So that it depends in that case. Any other questions? Yes. Excuse me? White box testing. Now, I can say no. Or what I can say more better way is it depends on component test owners. Because we just run test automation we received from component test owner. So for BBT. So if the test automation we received from the component test owner is based on like a white box testing, right? Then we run. I can say we run the test, white box testing, right? But so it heavily depends on what kind of a test automation component test owner gave us. So basically, what all we do is we run the test that the component test owner thought this is like appropriate, like a good for testing BBT, functional BBT testing. So it is basically based on, depends on component test owner's decision. So the question is, who is responsible for taking care of the test automation? Okay, so the complexity of the test automation, this also depends on component test owners. So this all depends on component test owners. And the decision, like what kind of test, how complex it should be, how many test cases should be run, like it all depends on component test owners. As a WinSE Hotfix QA team, we are not responsible for how in-depth each test automation goes. So like we just care of whether we have test automation functional BBTs, and then the level of like functional BBTs depends on component test owner's decision. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, the question is, if we do not have test automation for private, do we have any process to test them or follow up on them? So if we do not have test automation, actually we actually do nothing much. Because the reason why is we will later on we'll test Hotfix packages anyway, so we just skip that part. Also, when developers send email about their private, they include us, WinSE Hotfix QA team, and also component test owner, and also the contact person in the PSS team. So component test owner actually knows about the private. So we just let our component test owners do some testing if they think it's necessary. Otherwise, we just ignore that in that case. But at the time of Hotfix, because every private we get notified will be built as a Hotfix most of the cases. So there's a kind of guarantee that we will, even though we didn't test the private, we will test Hotfix packages either by us or by component test owners. Does that answer your question? The question is, if a regression is found from private testing, then do we go back and test the privates again? Is that your question? Okay, so the question is, if any regression found from our automated test process or manual test process later, and then the question is whether we go back and update our test cases and actually make sure the test is covered or not. So whether we test them again. So it also depends on the component test owners too. So they are responsible to update their test automation. Once they gave us their test automation, they are supposed to visit our test automation they gave to us, and then they have to update. And also, functional VB2 level test usually covers most important functions of a certain component or binary. It doesn't necessarily need to mean that it covers whole regression testing and whole index testing. So there's no guarantee that the test automation we have actually covers all the regression testing. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so to-dos. So we currently have about 70% of test automation we need for Windows 2000 testing, and then we have about 6% of test automation we need for Windows XP testing. As a WinSE team, we started taking over Windows XP testing since last year, but the transition process is kind of rough, so it's been slowed down. So test ownership of WinXP components are kind of slow now. So because of that, the test automation we have for Windows XP is kind of low. Also, so that we are trying to collect more test automation for WinXP because we do not have them. We kind of keep asking component test owners to run their tests on the Hotfix packages, and then we do not want that to happen, because the reason why we have this process is we want to have a dedicated team to run functional VBTs on WinXP components, WinXP Hotfix packages also. Then if we do not have much test automation, we gotta keep asking component owners to do extra work. So our goal is we ask component test owners to give us the proper functional VBT test automation to us, so that we can have a big pool of test automation, so that we can run proper tests on Hotfix packages to save time and resources. And our another goal is automating testing setup environment. Like most time-consuming part of testing is usually setting up test environments, like selecting test machines and installing some components, or re-imaging the machines, installing Hotfix package itself, and then actually finally running some tests. So from my experience, the time required for setting up test environment was about 50%, and actually the time to run the test was about 50% or so. Our component test owners are not responsible for setting up test environment. So our job is actually automating the test environment for them, so that their test automation can fit into our auto VBT process, so that everything can be tested automatically without human intervention. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, we are trying to migrate our test harness from Test Enterprise, which is an old test harness, which has lots of limitations. So we want to migrate our test harness to a new test harness called WTT, which is called Windows Test Technology, so which is a lot better test harness. So we are trying to do that. So I did that one already. I'm going back. For resources, you can visit http://WinSE test and QFE test, so that you can find our test status and then all the documentations related to our project. So, any other questions? Okay, thanks for coming.